morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law, My FM 101.3 and the Holliston Hub, Holliston HCAT, with your host, Jay Marsden. He's from the Marsden Law Group. I'm John Draw, and this is Money and the Law.
There it is.
We are the show that talks about anything that has to do with finance, anything that has to do with money or savings or investing and all that fun stuff. We also talk about the governing unit of the governing body, which is the law, which allows us to live in this great country and do all the things that we do because
we are a nation of laws.
Because the law is important.
Yes.
And my dear friend and partner here, he is our representative to talk about the law.
Yeah.
And I will, and also he dabbles in money somewhat.
Yes, we do. We do dabble in money. As lawyers, we love money. We love money.
Lawyers, nobody loves money more than lawyers.
They teach you that. That's one of your first classes you take in school.
That's why they call it money.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. Everybody loves it.
And of course, at Main Effort Financial, we talk about money, but really,
we dabble in the law.
We talk
back at you.
We talk about law all the
Sure
time.
you do.
If I don't say it at least once a week, I say, listen, I'm not a lawyer. I just stand next to one on TV.
Yes.
But I can talk. I can give you some insight.
I can hold my own. I can hold my own.
I'm not going to embarrass myself.
If pressed during the conversation, I would have to acknowledge my lack of credentials. But to the untrained ear, you might not know that.
Oftentimes, it's better that I do mention that, kind of up front, just so we know. Just so
full disclosure.
No one's making
full disclosure. Lawyers love disclosure.
It's funny. In the gym today, one of a colleague of ours, my friend Mike, who I was just referring to, he's actually very animated, and he was talking to somebody, and they were talking about trust, and I just had to help my buddy out and say, just for accuracy purposes, you are not speaking to a lawyer. And the guy looks at me and goes, "You're not a lawyer?"
Wait a minute. Hold
on.
I'm
I'm like, "No, he's not."
On the radio. Yep.
No, he's not. So I was just, keeping everybody honest.
Yes, yes, we are. Yes, we are. For those of you who don't know, I'm imagining that once you and Mike are talking at the gym, that might have taken your workouts of both of you probably off track a little bit, and it might have been a little bit of a longer visit than either one of you anticipated. Because I've seen you kind of work out at the gym before. I've seen you. Yep.
Here's how it works, and it's not my fault. It's not my fault.
No.
So I've been going to this establishment for a number of years, right?
Yes, sure.
And I in years past I've kind of gone in the morning. I've been sort of consistent in the morning, and you just it's like the same faces, it's the same guys.
Oh,
right?
the morning crew. I'm a morning guy. The morning crew is the same crew at the same time. Everyone's got the same schedule, the same routine. I'm 100% with you.
And it's it's kind of one of those things in life, right? Like you're kind of used to like your routine, you're kind of used to your rhythm.
It's a different atmosphere. It feels like a different gym if you go to later, like a different time of the day.
Oh, it's awkward. Yeah. You're like, first of all, what do I do? What do I say? I mean, is there anybody I can talk about the game with last night? Yeah. No,
I'm not doing that. I'm not a talker at the gym. You, on the other hand, for those of you who need a visualization, in the beginning of something like, let's say, the president's address to Congress, right? And when the doors open and the guy comes out and he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States." And then he comes down that long walkway, but as he walks down the walkway, he has to stop and talk to pretty much every single person that's kind of along. That's what watching John go through the gym is like. He's got to stop and talk to every single person until he finds his way to, I guess the equivalent would be whatever machine you're heading to now works as the dais where you're going to then pretend to make your speech. So you're going to make your way through that crowd. That's what it looks like.
That's not a bad analogy because
I know it's not. I made it up.
Because the people that I stop and talk to are representative of certain facets of the world, right?
Yes.
So there's like my military guys, right? Yep. There's guys that are like former military, and you always have to connect with them, and especially if they're not Army guys, like there's a couple Navy guys, there's a Marine there,
so you got to always show them some love.
Well, you got to kind of show them some love, but at the same time, remind them of kind of the pecking order, right? Hey, you're in the Marines, you're really in the Navy, just
nice.
For clarity purposes.
They love that.
Yeah, they do. And then, of course, there's like the sports guys, right? Because me being a native New Yorker, there are several like native New York sports fans that, of course, we have that like, hey, remember 2007, right?
Yeah.
2011.
How about that game the other night? How about them Knicks? How about them Knicks?
The Knicks they're a new thing, right? Yeah, they're a new because it's funny. And me growing up as a New York Knickerbockers fan, right? That was my team. And they were talking about this the other day on sports radio about how, all these, people from New York, like Spike Lee, like the Knicks, like the Knicks is all like, I love the, like, watch out for the Knicks. the Knicks haven't done anything in like 40 years.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And here
I
they
know,
are.
and here
Right.
they are.
And
I
here-
know. I know. That's a different
So
show, but that,
that is a different.
So yes, you are right. There are different factions that need some. Yep, I got.
And then I have my softball people, and then if maybe once in a blue moon, I will see my money in the law partner, right? And I'll tell you what, when that happens, and you know, Jason, they're saying, oh yeah, I never talk at the gym. I just got my hood on. I'm just working out because that's what I do. I'm here to work. I'm not here to talk. There have been plenty of times when I have bumped into you, and that was the end of my workout.
Yes, I've done that. I will admit that.
Probably
I'll admit
because
that.
probably because we're talking about the show because
Sure.
we have this
Yep.
opportunity to let's
Yep. Yes, I have been equally as put
This
off
is
the,
you we're
off
talking
the,
about.
off the trail as far as the workout goes. Yeah,
dear.
I'm gonna probably have to push the second half of this off.
Yeah, you know what?
I'll make this up. I'll make this up tomorrow
I'm
when he's
done.
not here.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
you know, some of this I'll do at home.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. The pump is gone. I gotta wrap it up. I gotta wrap it up. So, all right, that's good stuff.
So
That's
how's
good.
things? How's things? with
Things
you?
are good. Big announcement.
What's up?
Huge announcement,
What
actually.
happened?
Huge. Nothing crazy. Nothing.
Okay,
Nothing
all right.
crazy. Marsden Law has. We've finally, after long discussions, we've opened up an office on Cape Cod.
That's right.
That's
Congratulations.
our huge announcement.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Cape Cod office. So
Yes.
anybody, so if you're down there for a week, right, and you're on your vacation, right, you're at the beach, like,
Yeah.
hey, listen, it's going to be a little cloudy today. Why don't we swing by?
You know what we should do?
Review that estate plan.
We have some options. We can do mini golf. We can do the water park, or we could go revisit what happens in case of our untimely
We can
death.
go do those.
Which one do we want to do?
we can do those life
Which one
insurance
do we want to
trusts.
do? Let's get
I mean,
this
what's
time.
more fun?
Kids, it's going to be phenomenal.
This
It's
is gonna be
phenomenal.
great.
Forget Margaritaville. We're going right away.
We're
This
going
guy,
back.
this guy loves Margaritaville, and it's going to seem like it, but we get to talk about some
We're
stuff.
going to go spend time with your Uncle Jay.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So yes, we finally have a
exciting. That's
brick and
exciting.
mortar presence down on the Cape. We're very excited about it, and there'll be more.
Extraordinarily convenient for you.
There'll be
so
more to come.
So if you have to do some work in Cape Cod,
Look, if the work-
particularly when the weather brightens up a
If
little
the,
bit,
if the work takes me where it takes me, then that's fine. I mean, I'm just trying to be there for clients, trying to be there,
Exactly.
trying to help out. That's what we do. We help. The more
We're
people we
here
help,
for
the
you.
better we are. The better we are. So that's our big announcement. And you may have received an email. You may have received some warnings. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
you may have received a do
Yep.
not open said email. Right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's our big
good.
news. That's our big news. So we're on Independence Drive over by the Cape Cod Mall.
Even better.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
right,
Independence Drive.
right,
Come on. What,
Then
yeah.
it's right.
What's more American than that?
I mean,
Yep.
Saul Goodman. I mean,
Yep.
nothing's more
That's exactly
American
right.
than
That's exactly right. So, with Memorial Day coming up, think of us on Independence Drive. It's all good. 4th of July, Independence Drive. Where else- where do you want to be?
Make your appointment early.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
Memorial Day is coming up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Memorial
we're
Day
on
is
the corner.
coming
Yep.
up, and we
Yep.
all know that Memorial Day is kind of the beginning of the
Oh,
summer.
it is. It's not
So,
kind of. It is.
Yeah, and it's funny. So we're actually going to a wedding on Memorial
Oh.
Day. Yes.
Nothing says I love my guests more than picking one of the 3 great summer weekends in New England to ask everybody to come and fawn over you. Yep. What a great, what a selfless
Well,
act.
I will say this. So the people that are getting married, and you can attest this. So, I don't know if I think you've met these guys, but these are my nephews. So
Okay.
yeah, so my wife's brother and ex-wife Susan, their 3 sons are like, I always call them the sons I'll never have.
Sure, yeah.
And the oldest one is Henry.
Yep.
So Henry, who was an intern at Maine Edward Financial for a number of years.
Why wouldn't he be?
Henry is getting married to Jackie.
Nice. Wonderful.
So, and they'd been planning this. I mean, it's been on the schedule for like
Yep.
2 years. So
Where
it's
is
like,
it? Upstate New York.
No. It's in Massachusetts. It's up on the North Shore. I forget that. I should probably know this.
Yeah,
but it's
you'll find out.
Yeah, they'll let me know when I need to know.
At least, yep.
But so it's on 5/25/25. So that's
Okay.
kind of like, and that's kind of a
Oh,
cool,
yeah,
like
I'm
kind
sure
of
in some-
thing with fives.
Yep. Somewhere 5 is a special number. Sure,
It's
I'm
a
sure
great
that's
number.
how they
That's-
sell it.
yeah,
Yep.
And
Okay.
but what this wedding marks, and remember this. Remember when, cast your mind back when you were kind of in your mid to late 20s. Do you remember when everybody started to get married?
Oh, I do.
And it was just like ba-boom, like, right? And those weddings were like, they were fun, right? Because everybody was young and
yeah, you were
insane.
bulletproof,
And
yes,
exactly.
yeah.
And so our wedding, so when we got married, we got married, we always say we're like little kids playing with grown-ups. So I always get married. We were very young when we got
Sure.
married. So ours was kind of like the kickoff of that
Yeah.
wedding season that just proceeded for the next 5 years, right?
That's exactly what it is.
And
Yep.
that's what this one is.
All right.
For our family. So
Great.
So my kids, my three, they are chomping at the bit.
Oh, they're
Like,
fine. Oh,
they-
weekend away on Dad's dime
they
in the summer.
can't
Sure,
wait.
absolutely.
And
yes.
and it's their cousin, right?
Yeah.
So I get to do even more,
Yeah.
like I'd be
It's
even
fun.
more crazy.
It's fun. Weddings are fun. I always just have a personal opinion on the timing.
What is your opinion?
The timing of
Your
some of these
Honor,
things.
I'd
That's
like
all.
to present
That's
an
all. That's all.
opinion.
That's just it. You know, and you can probably read between the lines. I just always find that interesting
What interesting?
when how people choose the timing of their
Oh, the
weddings.
date of the wedding.
When they say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're so upset. We're having a wedding on Christmas Eve. What could possibly
right,
what
it's
could
New
possibly
Year's Eve.
interfere with that?"
Now you have something
You
to
know?
do on Memorial
And
Day.
there's a couple that like there's a pecking order for this, right? Like I think that the July 4th wedding, I think that takes some gumption to pull something
Yeah.
off like that. Is it second to the Labor Day weekend? Like we're gonna wrap this all up and you're gonna close out your okay, maybe those will touch and go. Memorial Day is almost manageable because it could be 50
Yeah.
or it could be 80, right? So you don't know, right? So it could be just like
It could
anything
be
else.
right. It could
Yep.
be an inside day anyway,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
there's
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But you're right. It's like, yeah. So good. We're all off the next day because it's a federal holiday. And,
Sure. Yeah.
And that's great for everyone.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I didn't even think of it like that. You know what? I'm not. You know what? I'm not gonna.
Look,
I'm not gonna let it disturb me. No.
if there's a way to find the glass being half
Half full.
empty, I'll find it. Don't you worry.
That's why-
Don't you worry, pal.
that's why
I got
we-
your back. I
that's
got your
why
back.
we got 'em.
You need
All
some
right.
balance
Thanks.
here. Need some balance.
A little too much wind in my sails for that anyway.
You want to tap down the bubbly side of this conversation? Give me a minute.
You know,
Give me a
let's
minute.
talk about
Give me a
that
minute.
law office on Independence
Give me a
Drive.
minute.
That's more exciting.
Let me
You know what?
find.
That's-
Let me find the dark side of this conversation.
more
Hang on
heartwarming.
a second. That's
Okay,
right.
guys, you know,
Yep.
hey, Henry, Jackie, after your wedding, swing down. We'll do the wills. We'll get that
Yeah.
done, right? Yeah.
Well, you'll have plenty of time because you know what? Nobody will be on the road because guess where they'll all be? Wherever they should
the
be spending
beach.
the kickoff of their summer vacation. That's so. I mean, getting down the kid, be a piece of cake because everyone's already down there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
thanks a
That's
lot.
right.
Thanks
Yep.
for getting us down here.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
4 days early.
Yep. So,
That's
messing
good.
with both of you, congratulations.
Oh,
it's
it's
a
gonna be
great,
good.
great time of. To what do you? I remember one year I went to 12 weddings one summer.
12 weddings.
6 of them were black tie.
Wow. Did you buy a tux?
I did.
Of
I did.
course.
Still
was
got
gonna
it.
say, What was
Still
that?
got it.
Yeah.
Still fit into it.
fits. Yeah,
Still fit into it.
obviously.
Like a glove.
It's a little loose.
Like
it's
a
little
glove.
loose, right?
Like a
yeah.
glove. Bond.
You were
James
big back
Bond.
then. You,
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
lifting. You
Yeah.
were lifting a little more.
Sinewy.
Yeah.
Wiry. Yeah. So what are we talking about today before we go on a break real quick? Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I just have to say congratulate my daughter. My daughter graduated this past weekend.
Congratulations.
So big congratulations to my Lily. She lives in Long Island right
Good for
now.
her.
So
That's great.
So we were just, in fact, I left Haley down. Haley's still down there.
Nice.
So and I got to go back again tonight. But so now. You know, it was funny. We're talking about like saying like, you know what? You're a New Yorker now. Like I know you've lived down here for quite some time, but now you really live
you
here.
get mail here.
And,
Yeah.
I'm like, you probably need to get a New York driver's license. Like, I mean, there's no more Massachusetts for you.
Yeah,
Like
you've
kind of
cut the string.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's time.
That's
So
funny when the kids do that. All of a sudden, you're like, "This is real. This is your home now. Like, this is your home now." Like,
whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
I know you. Don't worry, we're not going to like rent your room out just yet.
yeah.
but
The bed's still made,
Yeah.
but I just want to let you know.
as
just
you know,
really,
it's
yeah.
more of the guest room now.
Yes.
Yeah, this is your room. This is your house. So yeah, we had a really, really fun weekend this weekend.
That's
It was
great.
it was good.
Congratulations.
Okay, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I always have a topic,
Yeah.
as do you. I was going to, if we were just kicking around, I know you were just going to jump into this, but I was going to talk about probate versus what we call estate settlement and kind of what they mean and sort of what the difference between
That's
the two of
good to
them.
know.
Because you hear them used somewhat interchangeably. And so we were going to kind of talk about, what the differences are, kind of what makes up, either one of the two, and just kind of explain the whole process to people. Not diving into like super heavy duty probate stuff, but just kind of talking about this whole idea of what those two mean and how they kind of work together.
I'll even go one further.
Woo.
And say it's good to just talk about what probate is.
Sure.
Because for if you're kind of getting ready to do some estate planning, or if it's you need to review your estate plan, or if you have never even heard of it or thought about it, but someone said, hey, you know what, you probably should do some kind of an estate plan, then the one of the primary terms that gets thrown around is probate, right?
Yeah.
And unless you know what that is, unless you're kind of in the know or you're familiar with it, that tends to throw a monkey wrench things. She's like, oh, well, that's got to go through probate. Oh, is that going to be, that's non-probatable.
That's why we're going to talk about it as part of an overall, rather than just make it and define it as probate, because people's kind of eyes start to kind of spin back in their head a little bit. We're going to talk about it just as overall umbrella estate settlement.
Yep.
We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about what that means, and probate will be part of that discussion, because it doesn't always have to be painful, and all of it might not be painful. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
I love it. And we'll talk about the Knicks being up 3-1 on the Celtics. We can talk about that too. That might have been another, but you know what?
It's a whole
Today,
nother.
It's Wednesday. Today's game
Game tonight, right?
Big game tonight. Big
Yeah.
game tonight.
All right.
All right. I'm excited about this. I like going back and talking about the basics. So
It's basics where we're all about.
I
We're all
love-
about the basics, baby. All
basically,
about the
that's what
basics.
we're all basically about.
We're two very basic individuals.
Basically,
this is perfect what
that's
you're
what
gonna
we're
get.
saying.
Yep.
It's basic. All right. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We're talking about some really basic stuff.
And we're back. Money in the Law, MyFM. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial, MyFM 101.3. Tom is on the bag with us today, and we just wrapped up that first segment of our show where we kind of catch you guys up on basically things that really mean a lot to us, which is our life, and talk
That's
about
right.
our favorite topic,
That's
which
like
is
segment
us.
one. It's
That's
just
right.
we
That's
talked
exactly
about
right.
that,
That's exactly
yeah.
right. But now we're getting to the meat on the bone here. Now we're really diving
But
into.
wait, what about Tommy? What about Tom? What's going on with what's
Tommy
up
can
with
tell
you?
us. Tommy can tell us what's going on.
Playing more golf?
I haven't.
What are you doing?
We just talked about this before. I said to him, you got to just focus on. He was kind enough to ask me about my game. I told him I have no game.
Because he's
Fine.
kind.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
he's thoughtful,
Compassionate
he's,
human
right,
being,
he's a nice guy.
empathetic,
Yeah,
yeah.
every week. Hey guys.
Yeah.
Right, and then when we say we're going to do it, he's excited. Like
Yeah.
this is great.
Yeah.
We're going to do the show.
he's
and
fired
he's
up.
happy,
He's like,
right?
"Get me out of the
Meanwhile,
office."
you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I got this Cape Cod thing going. I don't know if I'm going to be there. Just bring it to right? So I'm like, if you guys can't make it, it's okay. We're good. Yeah, right. He's the only one who cares.
He is the only one.
Yeah.
The only compassionate person in this room.
Thank you for
Thank you for being you.
Thank
you for being
all
you.
All right, let's talk about estate. It's the estate settlement.
Well, so
I'm settled.
Yes, but here's what we're talking about. We're talking about estate settlement because we've had a couple of situations recently where people come in the office and they'll say, look, we took all your advice, Jay. We did the trusts. We did the this. We did the that. We did everything you told us to do. And I still feel like there's work. And we say to people, well, look, there's paperwork. There's always paperwork, right? The question is, who are we doing the paperwork with, right? Now, they can
Who's
either
doing it?
come into your office and see your smiling face and sit down and fill out some paperwork on their own time, on their own schedule, and have just a joyous experience spending time with you and your folks. Or they can muscle their way up to Lowell and hang out at the probate court up there and maybe receive less than a friendly reception when you have to deal with things at the probate
Because
court.
Lowell's right around the corner.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, it's right
Easy to
on
get
the
to.
other side of the
They get
moon.
that connect.
Yeah.
That makes it real easy
Yeah.
to get there.
Yep.
So the idea is, look, estate settlement is the overarching theme. And when we talk about estate settlement, we mean, look, when something happens to somebody, their things, their stuff, right? Some of it's
Yep.
physical, tangible, real property, personal property, and some of it could be real estate, and some of it's money, right? I mean, this is really all it breaks down to,
It's
right?
pretty much all it is, right?
That's right.
It's,
That's all-
that's your, when we talk about property, it's your stuff,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
It's your
That's
house,
right.
it's your real estate, it's your money, it's your gear, it's
Yeah,
your
it's your knickknacks, it's your candlesticks, it's your
Yep.
cuckoo clocks, right? That stuff's real. So estate settlement means basically that process of getting all of that stuff from person A to person B. And so that journey, is going to involve many different things, right? If it's a spousal situation where you have a husband and wife, something happens to, mom or dad, then the survivor of the two of them, for the most part, basically gets all the stuff that's in the house, right? There's usually not a real distinction made. Sometimes people will have a will
Sometimes
that
there's-
says,
yeah.
I want this to go here and I want
Honest
that to go
Wagner.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But usually what happens is, mom or dad, the survivor of the two of them, surviving spouse, they usually just inherit it. They just get
Yeah.
it, right? And by getting it, I mean, like, there's no paperwork for you to get the candlestick. There's no paperwork for you to get the cuckoo clock, right? Something
I
happens.
thought you were going to say like the rope and the I thought we were going to play Clue here.
Well, no, but I mean, like if something happens, look, somebody just gets the personal stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. There's really not a title
I mean,
change,
if
right?
you have a Rembrandt, that's a different animal.
Different
yeah,
animal. Picasso hanging on
yeah.
the wall. We get some work to do.
Yeah.
Dogs playing poker, not a big deal,
No.
right? Not a big deal.
Right.
So that stuff is just going to go to the survivor. And if it's one person, if it was mom and dad had passed away years ago, or dad and mom had passed away years ago, the family is going to kind of gather around the table, if you will, and they're going to go through all of the personal stuff.
And most of it's
they're
going to go into the dumpster outside.
Well, that's it. Unfortunately, that's exactly. I mean, some cases there's always a scenario where somebody wants everything, right?
Yeah.
And that's usually unworkable because now it becomes like a Podge factory out
Yeah.
there, right? Like I want everything that mom and dad owned. I have no way to put it, and I have no way to get it where I need it to go.
Because I live in California.
Or I rent an apartment, and I just don't have the space for
Yeah.
that, right? So, but I mean, this is there's estate settlement is for purposes of this discussion. That stuff has to go somewhere, right? And you're exactly right. It's going to go to who it goes as an individual, and then whatever is left, that's when somebody says, "Look,
Estates.
I don't need a coffee table.
Yeah.
I don't need a couch. I don't need a TV. I have 3 of my own. You know, I don't need a hutch, right? Nobody's buying those
Especially
anymore.
the TV,
right?
especially Dad's TV, which is like 5,000 pounds.
RCA,
Yeah, exactly.
still turns by the knob on
it's
the
good.
thing.
It's good TV.
You know, watch the
Good, yeah.
Ali fights on it,
Yeah.
right? It's got some mileage
yeah,
on
we
it, right?
watched a 1985 Villanova game on
Yeah,
that.
bought it for the Olympics. Bought it for
Remember
the
that?
Olympics.
Remember
Yep.
that?
So this stuff has to go somewhere. And after everybody essentially goes through the personal items, the things that have value from a sentimental perspective. And look, Dad might have a shoebox with some cash in it. You're going to hand that out, right? Dad might have a coin collection. I mean, there'll be some things in the stamp collection we joke about. We joke about the Honus Wagner,
Yeah.
baseball card and all the Mickey Mantle rookie year and all that stuff. Sure, that stuff's going to go make its way. And with the outlier idea of maybe 1 or 2 of those things has real value, a lot of it's just personal items.
Sure.
Right? So that goes where it goes. No paperwork. That's estate settlement. That's getting rid of the personal stuff. And then you got to empty the house. Right? That's a phone call to the movers, to the donation people, to Habitat for Humanity, to the junk people. Unfortunately, I hate to say it that way because nobody wants to think of their stuff as junk. But when I look around my house, I say to myself, nobody wants this stuff.
Nobody
Even if they
wants it.
wanted it, they don't need it, right? They already have.
They think they want it. They
Yeah.
don't want it. You
Nobody
don't want
wants my dining room table. Everybody has a dining room table. Unless you hit the trifecta of 3 nieces and nephews graduating college and moving into an apartment,
buying a house, yeah.
right around the time of your untimely demise,
Lucky
and they
you.
say, we'll take all of it.
home run.
That's a win, right? That's a win. That's the win of the
We need
ages.
that dresser with the broken drawer. We'll fix that.
We'll take
Yeah.
it. We'll take it. I need a bedroom set. We'll take it. That never happens, right? So this stuff has to go somewhere. That's not probate, but that's estate settlement. That has to go somewhere, right? Now you get into the money, right? The bank accounts, right? If all of those things have joint names on them or have a beneficiary on them at the bank account level, you're going to have to do paperwork. You're going to have to do some estate settlement. It's not probate stuff. We'll talk about the probate stuff later.
We're not even at probate
We're
yet.
not even
No.
out probate. I'm just saying, you're going to have to go to the bank and sit down with a bank manager, sit down with somebody in the bank office, and decide about cashing in jointly held CDs, taking someone's name off of a bank account. You know, you're going to have to begin the transition of moving what were jointly held assets into the surviving joint owner's name.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction, right? So what we're talking about right now is a spouse, right? One of the spouses passes.
Or kids who are on the bank account, anybody who was on the bank account.
But it's jointly held. So this
Correct.
is the important distinction when we talk about it, because probate is when it has to go to the probate court. Is when the probate court is going to decide based on what your will says, right?
Correct.
It's gonna read your will, and then if you don't have a will and you're intestate, right, or
Yep.
intestate, or
Yep.
however you lawyers say it,
Yep.
then the judge says, okay, there's no will, but based on what we see here and what's presented in front of us, this is how we're going to divvy up this stuff. But if it's a joint account, it's a jointly held account, and one person or one of the people, then it doesn't even have to go there. This is all settled long before I have to do anything that has to deal with probate.
No, but you're right. You're exactly 100% right. But the message is, you still have to do some stuff.
Oh,
right? There's
it,
still
it
work.
doesn't just happen.
Correct.
Right?
There's still work. Because you could not do this and then the joint account will live as long as it lives. At some point, the bank's going to get wind of the fact that somebody passed away, and they may ask you to close down the account because the Social Security number doesn't match up anymore, and and all that stuff. So at some point, they're going to kind of catch up with you. But this is estate settlement. This is going to the bank. This is taking accounts that used to be held jointly or that had named beneficiaries on them and converting them to your name. Okay. And if this is if the other account was the one that had the primary Social Security number on it, the bank may say to you, no, we need to open up a new account. They may not let you keep the old account, right?
For all the right reasons, because
For all
Social
the
Security
reasons.
doesn't.
And that's going to be frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Because that account had the auto pay for the gas bill and the electric bill. And so if the bank takes the position that you need to close the account and open up a new account, this is going to be a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Or if the other account was where Social Security and pension checks get deposited, and now you're going to get a new account, you're going to have to reach back out to the Social Security Administration. You have to reach out back to your pension provider, and you're going to have to tell them, I'm changing my accounts. So there's this transition that nobody loves because now things are kind of up in the air, right? I have 2 debit cards. Which account has money in it? Which one should I be using going forward? When do I stop using the old one? This has got nothing to do. You're 100% right. This has nothing to do with the probate court. This is not probate. This is just estate settlement. This is just cleaning up the transition.
And that's the way to put it. You got to clean it up,
Yep.
right? You got to clean it up, and again, it's a sad time. There's this is the emotional part of it. There's the change, the life change that
Yep.
you've just undergone. That's tricky, but once you kind of get to the, once you kind of work through all that, because if it's a joint account, then you're still going to be able to access your money, right?
Sure.
You're still
Yeah.
so you're not, nothing's going to change. You're still going to be able to your Social Security check's going to go into the bank account.
Yep.
And you'll be able to access. So you'll be able to get the money.
And I would say keep that joint account open for a little while because you might get these random stray
yeah,
checks
yeah.
that come in the other person's name, and you need a place to deposit those.
Yeah. So once kind of like the dust settles a little bit on this, then it comes time all right, we just need to clean this up.
Yep.
We need to organize it and clean it up. And it's going to take some work. And it's almost like like when you go to the gym, right? Like in the beginning, you go to the gym, you're like, look, I got 30 minutes. I got to get through these 5 exercises,
Sure.
right? You're like,
20,
you know
but
what?
Go ahead.
45, hour and 45. It all depends. Depends what day it is, right?
Yeah.
It's legs
That's
day.
right. Leg day, different day.
You never
different
know,
back
right?
and buys, different day.
But it's like one of those things. Like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do like 5 different exercises. And then I'm going to be done, right? And then I'm done. And I've done the work. I've organized the bank accounts. I've called the bank. I've called Social Security. I've called the pension. I've kind of made this all happen. And it takes a little bit of work. And maybe I have to wait on hold, or maybe
Sure.
I have to, maybe there's some snafu, or there's something I have to get some stupid piece of paper. I have to get some death certificate, or I have to get some birth certificate, or something that
They want some paperwork. Yeah.
yeah. So I do I organize all that. I muscle through it. I do it, and then it's done.
Yep.
Right. And then that bit of my estate is organized and it's settled, and I'm like, and now I can.
Well, you took care of the banking piece, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, if that's your goal, that's a great day. Like, stop there.
Yeah.
You've done it, right? You've cleaned up some things. You got a new bank. You get a new bank card coming in the mail. You've
Your
been
checks.
given your new
Yep.
account number. They gave you some temporary checks. You know who your new account number is, or you know what your new account number is. You know you're going to make some phone calls to change some of these direct deposits and kind of fix everything in terms of where the auto withdrawals go to cover all that stuff. But you have a plan for that piece of the puzzle, right? None of that involves a probate court. None of that involves you being an executor.
Yeah.
None of that involves you being a trustee.
You don't have to call
None
your
of that
lawyer.
Nope,
You don't have to
nope.
do it. You don't have
That's
to call
just
your-
going to the bank and taking care of the bank. We talked about the bank accounts, cars.
Yeah.
All right. Husbands and wives, spouses. The registry, the RMV, has their own internal RMV process. I'm not saying it's good. That allows spouses.
He's not saying it's bad either. So when the RMV
When
police come and
when I
they
go to
come-
get my real ID next week, don't lean on me.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I'm going to take you to the back room.
they have paperwork.
asked you some questions.
They have paperwork, and that paperwork is about getting a spouse's vehicle to the surviving spouse. We're not talking about probate. We're not talking about going to the kids. We're talking about that's paperwork with the RMV. You don't have to be an exec. If you're the surviving spouse and you're looking to take your spouse's car that, for whatever reason, was in their name alone, you don't need to be the executor. You don't need to be the personal representative. You're not going in as a trustee. You're going in as a surviving spouse, and they're going to move the Honda Pilot from your husband's name or your wife's name to you. They have a process. They're going to want, you're 100% right, they're going to want some paperwork. They might want a death certificate. That's fine, not fine, but they're going to want those things. That's
the
estate
rule,
settlement.
right? That's how they
got
do it, yeah.
nothing to do with probate, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about your bank accounts. We talked about your car. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about your investments, which is your
Talking about
milieu.
There you go.
Yep.
We'll talk about that. All right. Yeah. So don't go away. We're learning some good stuff here. It's a good, like I said, it's a good review to kind of go back to the basics on this. So don't go. We'll be right back. Talk more about the estate settlement process.
Wicked excited.
Yeah. No, I'm on the edge
It's
of my
exciting.
seat.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's
Should
Saturday.
be.
Yeah.
And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Tommy's on the bag today as usual, and we are talking estate settlement. No, not probate. We're just talking about estate
We're
settlement.
not talking about probate yet.
Not yet.
No,
we'll
no.
get to
We're
probate.
getting
We're
there.
talking about estate settlement.
Yeah.
We
Hold
talked
that
about
thought.
cleaning up bank accounts a minute ago. We talked about cleaning up some ownership of vehicles at the RMV a second ago. And now we're talking about investments.
You brought up a good point though. Before the break, you brought up a good point. You're like, look, if you get this, all doesn't have to be done in one day.
No.
You know, it doesn't. And you said, look, if your goal for the day was to just organize the bank, like organize your bank account, figure out like or what's automatically done, you know, what automatically gets paid or goes into or deposited into the bank, and you get that and you get that done, then you're done.
Yeah.
You're done for that day.
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing. And again, and then the cars, you got to deal with the RMV and you got to, you know,
Sure.
You know what? All of this doesn't have to be done in one. It's not like they're going to come and take your car away.
Well,
right?
no, but also this is an emotional activity.
Yeah.
I get it. I completely get it. You know, my dad and I had the same exact name. Anytime I had to do something that involved removing him from something, I felt like I was removing myself. I'm very sensitive to the idea that we understand the undertaking. We understand what you're trying to do. We understand what this entails. And you never want to feel like you're forgetting the person. You never want to feel like you're removing their memory. And this is what it can feel like. So to your point, you do this in baby steps.
Yep.
You do this how and when you can do this. And for people who have what's up with the car, for people who have local presence with a local insurance company, this may be a project that you turn over to your insurance company.
Yeah.
And say to the insurance
Help me
company,
out.
look, I need to figure some paperwork out at the RMV. You guys speak RMV really well. Can you guys pull the paperwork together for me so that I just got to swing in, sign a document, give you whatever you need, and go about my business? And that could save you a trip to the RMV.
Yeah.
And
And
let
s-
them help you
And
out.
save you the angst that kind of
Yeah,
comes.
for those who have AAA, right? The AAA office right here in Franklin.
Yeah.
They'll help you out with all this.
Yeah, they'll walk
and
you through
that's a kinder, gentler nation over there, right? So that could work a little bit different for you. So we're sensitive to that idea. Investment accounts, right? Ideally, you work with a great investment advisor like Main Effort Financial, and you make an appointment. And you go into the office and you say, look, we had these joint accounts, and I need to remove somebody's name from the account. That account needs to live in my name alone. And you're going to say, great, we'll prepare all the paperwork before you even get here. So when you get here, your time is
Easy.
effectively
Yeah.
spent. That's right. That's right. That's right. Now, when they do that, do they have to open up a new account?
Oftentimes they don't. Oftentimes
Look at that.
you're able to just kind of keep the same account, or we just change the titling on the account. You know,
Yep.
so that's relatively easy to do. Same thing if somebody has a retirement account. So if someone, like, say they inherit like a spousal retirement account, that account will usually change.
Yep.
But again, it's a relatively seamless process. There's always paperwork involved, and,
Sure.
and unfortunately, in the financial planning industry, like in the investment industry, there's an inordinate amount of paperwork
Oh, yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
So almost, and we always joke around, say, whenever someone opens like, there's going to be an embarrassing amount of paperwork that comes, you
Yep.
know, and like, well, can I do it online? Like, well, you can, but there's going to be an embarrassing amount of online things that you have
Oh,
to
my
do.
God,
that's,
yes,
That's
yes.
that could present sometimes even a little bit harder. So, yep, there's going to be some paperwork, but the paperwork is going to be laid out for you, and it's easy to do. It's easy to do because your advisor is going to sit there and they're going to walk you through it, and
Yep.
they're people sometimes, and you probably see this, people get nervous. Like if I'm signing a bunch of, I don't know what, I'm not reading all this, I'm signing a bunch of,
My spouse handled all this.
yeah, right. Especially if it's somebody
the time.
who's really not like connected to it. So this is where your advisor is going to earn their money, and they're going to say, look, okay, I'm going to, yes, there's a mountain of paperwork. I'm going to explain to you exactly what you're doing here, exactly what's happening, exactly what isn't happening, because that's the other thing. People are like, well, if I'm if this account's changing and now this is an IRA, then I'm just going to get the money. There's $200,000 in that IRA, so I'm just going to get. Where does that money go? And you're like, well, it's staying right inside that IRA. And oh, by the way, now it becomes your IRA. So now, and then explain kind of what that means, especially if there was an age difference, if they were taking required minimum distributions, what the rule says about that. Like, you're like, well, I'm not 70 years old yet. Why do I have to keep taking required? Well, you do, because your spouse was over the age of required minimum distribution, so that money still needs to come in. And oftentimes that doesn't really make that much of a difference. But again, and you bring up a good point, if it's the off spouse who wasn't really involved with the finances, it's good to sit down and be like, okay, let me just, and it doesn't have to be, I'm going to explain everything about retirement accounts in one sitting, right? It can be, okay, let's just kind of frame this up in really simple, easy to understand terms.
I want you to hear some of the lingo. Let's understand some of the terms a little bit.
And then what we're going to do in 3 months or 6 months.
Yeah.
Kind of once things settle a little bit more, again, on the whole emotional side and all the life changes that you're going to be going through, we're going to link back up again, and we're going to just say, okay, let's review. Let's
dive a little deeper.
Yeah, and we'll say remember, this is what we did.
Yep.
And I'll remind you about the stuff of why you're doing what you're doing. And then I'll also be able to say, okay, how's it going? What's your income feel like? What's your financial situation look like? What does everything else look like? Like, am I, all the things, like when life changes happen, like, am
I keeping the house? You selling the house?
Am I
You're
staying
moving?
here?
You're not
exactly,
moving.
Exactly. So, you don't have to kind of get your arms around, you have to eat this elephant all in one sitting, right?
Sure.
You can take time, but as long as you have somebody who's going to kind of coach you through this, that's important. That's important. And your estate planning attorneys, they're the ones who are going to be kind of like the quarterbacks of this, right?
Sure.
So when when something happens, you're going to call that office. You're going to say, okay, what do I do?
But you know what? But this is a great point. So this is, again, you're not doing this as an executor. You're not doing this as a personal representative. You're just going into your investment advisor, and you're going to sit down, and they're going to say to you, these are all the things that you guys owned jointly, or these are all the things that you were the named beneficiary of, and now we have to move them, right? Because they're no longer going to be held jointly. They're not going to be a beneficiary account anymore. You are going to get the money either because it's a taxable account that you both own, or you were the beneficiary of a retirement account. So when the dust clears, all of this is going to live in your name for the most part, right? And this is just paperwork. This is estate settlement, right? This is paperwork. This is taking joint names off accounts and putting money that, if this was a life insurance policy, for example, you're going to get a check. You're going to want a check. Everybody understands how life insurance works. Somebody passes away, I get a check. You don't keep the life insurance policy. You don't keep the money with the life insurance company. You get the life insurance check, the policy goes away, and the money is now yours.
Unless it's a second to die, which you didn't realize when you
which you may very well have realized.
That's like, right. I'm getting my $1 million life insurance. Well, you're not, because it's the next round.
That's right. That's right. One more to go.
Yeah,
one more to go. You're not going to get a big check.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get a big check. It's not going to be you.
It's not going to be you.
But this is exactly what you just touched on, which is we need to explain to you why some of these things that you thought maybe were coming your way aren't coming your way, because there was a certain reason we set it up, and it's kind of got lost in translation.
Right.
But the idea is you're not doing paperwork that needs to go through the probate court. This is just cleaning things up. You had a joint brokerage account that you didn't put into a trust. Now it's just in your name. If you had a joint trust, you need to change the tax ID number to your tax ID number, because the person who passed away, they had the tax ID.
All right. So now we've kind of said the T word, right? So now we're talking about, so again, we're not at probate yet.
No,
right?
We're not talking about probate.
So what happens if I have a trust, right? So again, like in the when does this get executed? Like when does does the trust get executed before I go to probate, or do those kind of happen at the same simultaneously?
If it's a single person's trust and that person has passed away, generally speaking, the folks who need to now do something with those trust properties have to get a tax ID number from the IRS, which you can get. You don't need to be the personal representative to get this. You get to get a tax ID number for the trust, because the person's 1040 income, the person's personal, income statement or tax statement has ended because they've passed away. So now you have the ending of somebody's personal stuff, and now it becomes a trust item that needs its own tax ID.
With its own identification.
That's right. That's right. Now, sometimes we've said to clients, look, if we're going to just do a distribution right away from this thing, and the goal is just dad's passed away on a Monday, and on Tuesday everyone wants a check cut, and there's no reason not to do that, we might just say cut the checks. Not a big deal. We don't need a tax ID number for that one transaction. But it really depends on the situation.
Yeah,
but
if you have property and real estate.
Yeah, that's right. So generally what would happen is there's kind of an ending to the personal tax ID, and then there's a beginning to the trust tax ID. If it's a joint trust, where when you fill out the paperwork to open the account up, they're going to ask for both your social security numbers. The person who's passed away, that account, that tax ID number, that social security number, that ends from a personal perspective. And so you, as the surviving joint owner, would put a new tax ID number, which is your social security number, on that trust. You guys might want a new application because you're changing the tax ID number. They might get a new account number, but that's driven by the investment company. But again, you're just doing this with your advisor, not waiting for anything from the probate court. This is literally just estate settlement, cleaning everything up so that when the dust settles from this part of the project, that the assets are owned the way they're supposed to be owned, either by you individually as IRA money, or maybe by you individually in your joint trust with just one of you left.
Yeah, and you ask yourself, well, wow, there's too much, right? There's too much. Why are we dealing with all this? Like, why does this matter right now? Why can't we deal with this later on? Or why can't we just, whatever? Like, it's just, this is too nerve-wracking or too, anxiety creating. And why does this matter? Well, it matters in the sense that, and you just touched on it, is the ownership has to be legally established.
Correct.
And it may be like the family's all gathered around and dad's gone and we're all sad about it and blah, 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 and like that's, we're not thinking about money, right? We're not thinking about money. But the fact of the matter is that, if we're just talking about the dining room table, or if we're talking about dad's, old, Honda Pilot or whatever, that's one thing. But if you're talking about investment property, or if you're talking about a brokerage account that's got a couple $1 million in it, and something else happens, right? And this is the thing. And again, it's unlikely, but if something else happens, like let's say, one of the beneficiaries of the estate is going through a divorce right now, right? So there's so now they're going through an ugly divorce. But now all of a sudden it's well, now there's this, because of, you're inheriting money. What is, how does that play into their divorce situation, right?
Sure.
So all of that kind of has to be kind of buttoned up. So who owns what, and who doesn't owe things, right?
Well, and you want to do this in a somewhat timely fashion, because you're 100% right in the sense that what if something happens to those people who are downstream, right? And then that creates a probate situation. So you're potentially setting up more trouble if you drag your feet on doing something like this. I mean, you don't always recognize it. You don't always know these things are out there. We get that. But ideally, at some point, you're sort of, these are the things that have to happen. And by the way, none of these need a lawyer. None of these need a lawyer. Everything we've talked about so far has nothing to do with lawyers or personal representatives or anybody going to the probate court. These are just the things that you have to do, depending on, even if we started this whole segment off by saying, even if you've done everything that I asked you to do, there's still stuff to do, right? That's still the things you have to do. So we talked about bank accounts, we talked about investment accounts, we talked about retirement accounts, we talked about life insurance. Now, all of those things like the IRAs and life insurance and things like that, those are generally speaking not probate items.
Nope.
Where they might become a probate item is if the beneficiary information is missing, if there's nobody on there as a beneficiary, or if the people who were supposed to take are not around. All right, so those things that we try to push as non-probate items could become a probate item if the beneficiary attention to detail wasn't taken care of.
Yeah. So we need to wrap up here, relatively.
Sure.
But so
last piece, real estate, we're done.
So All right, so let's talk about real estate.
So real estate, so same idea. If you're the joint owner of real estate, there's nothing for you to do. You take ownership to the property. There's some paperwork that needs to be filed at the registry
title.
of deeds.
Yep.
That you don't get a new deed. This is what people are very confused. You don't get a new deed. What happens is, if somebody passes away, joint ownership on a piece of property, a death certificate gets recorded at the registry of deeds, and usually an affidavit that says there was no estate tax due. Those things get recorded at the registry of deeds. That puts those things into the chain of title. You don't get a new deed like you get when you have a car. You don't get a new title. The deed stays the same, and the recording of those documents lets the world know that the person who owned the property has passed, and now when the next person sells it, there's only going to be one signature on the deed. So you're not going to have to do anything. That you might need to see a lawyer for that, but that's not a big deal. That's very straightforward. And if you don't do that right away, that can happen later on downstream. If you own the property in a trust or something along those lines, again, nothing to do there. There's probably nothing to do. If you owned it as a deed with the life estate where there were other people on the deed, those people become the owners of the property after you pass. Again, couple of things to file at the registry. The important thing is you do not need to go to the probate court. This is stuff that can be handled very, very easily and very straightforward.
Yeah, and important, like we were saying, it's handled relatively quickly, right?
Yes.
So that's the whole thing. We're gonna wrap things up. We'll dive into the probate end of the pool next time. But that's the thing about probate is going to take time. Probate just inevitably is just going to take time because you're in a pool with a bunch of other people. And
everything we just talked about, you could do the week after your spouse passes away. You can sit down and start all these projects. You're not waiting for the probate court to tell you to do anything or to give you the green light to do anything. This is just estate settlement, non-probate stuff that you just kind of got to do, and it's paperwork. I understand it's paperwork, it's work, but it doesn't involve going through the probate court.
But the important thing is that if you have planned your estate and you've kind of done the legwork on this, it's going to be relatively easy.
Oh yeah.
Right. So this is why this is why you do your estate planning, as we've said a billion times on this show, well ahead of time, and you organize this stuff and you organize as much of this stuff as you can. So when, not if, but when the inevitable happens, and when the life changes, all it's going to be is like, all right, what do I got to do? I have to do this paperwork, I have to organize this, and this. And like you said, it's done in a week.
Yeah.
And life moves on.
It's not on your timeline.
Yeah, and financially and property ownership wise, everything is organized. So now we can, take the next hill.
Yep.
And if there is something that has to be dealt with probate, most of the important stuff is kind of taken care of. Like most of like the day-to-day, the stuff like
if
the
there's
ongoing
some
life.
little thing that we find, that's the goal. It's something little, not a big deal.
Yep.
That's right.
All right.
All right. Hey,
we
wrap it up.
live and learn. We've learned some things today. Tonight you're rooting for your Celtics, even though poor Jason Tatum.
I know. It's
right?
a whole other story. Whole other show.
We'll do next week. Will be the basketball show.
Yeah.
All right, Tommy. Great seeing you.
Always
great seeing you. All right.
pleasure.
We'll see everybody next time on Money in the Law.
Have a great week, everybody.